name is Lisa Alastuey, and on this channel, you will find a variety of inspirational and informational videos. So if that sounds good to you and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. My guest today is Pam Reed, who is one of the most accomplished ultra runners ever. Pam's running career spans over 3 decades, and she holds many world records and race wins, including the first woman to win the Badwater 135 in 2002 and 2003. She holds world records in 24-hour and 48-hour races. She has completed over 100 100-mile races and is the only woman to ever run 300 miles without stopping. Well, let's just start from kind of the beginning. What got you into running long distance races?
What's funny is just this morning, so when when you mentioned that I've run over 100 milers. So when I hit my hundredth hundred, I got into this past year. I got into this Hall of Fame of ultra running, and Davy Crockett, who is in charge of that, did the coolest thing, and I just found it today. It's a YouTube, it's a video on what I've done in over the years and how I got into this Hall of Fame. But anyway, there was a picture of my mentor in there, and his name is Benny Linkhart, and he at 60 years old, which is ironic, I'm 62. When he was 60, he started running. He was a weightlifter, and he was my husband's client, and he introduced me to ultra running. And my husband had said he was about to that Benny was signed up to do this 100-mile run called Leadville, and I'm like, who can run 100 miles? That's crazy, you know. And so I met Benny, and he took me on the 17-mile run in Tucson, and it's history from there. He just would talk to me about ultra running and what it was about, and how, it's not, a lot of people think of running is, like 4-minute miles. And what's coming up is the Boston Marathon. And even for marathoning, most people are not running 4 to 5 minute miles, so it's just a whole different thing. And but it just it's so it I do it mostly now. I love running for my brain. It just calms me down and is beautiful. And but that's how I started.
Yes, yes. I was going to ask you what drives somebody to go out and run, several miles. Like what was the driving force for you in the beginning?
Well, I've always exercised, since I was a little kid. Like at 3 years old, I started doing gymnastics in my house, and I just move. And then in high school, I was always in 4 sports. I was a cheerleader, a gymnast, track, tennis. And then after high school, I started teaching aerobics. And so I'm very, very active, and I like to move. And to this day, I exercise 3 to 5 hours every day. So running distances like that, I mean, and I know I talk to a lot of people, they think it's boring. And it's when I get to think and I get to plan. And now the cool things with these podcasts and YouTube videos, you can listen to them, and that's fun. But basically just out running in the fresh air. I love fresh air. I love to be outside. So um, it's not a chore for me. It's just relaxing to me.
Yes, yes. So let's talk about some of the races. What do you consider to be the top 3 most prestigious ultra run races?
Well, what's funny is I'm about to do all three of them this year. There might be four in my mind, but actually, and I may get to do all four this year. Um, I think anyway, and somebody might argue with me, but in the U.S. anyway, there's the oldest 100-mile run is Western States. That's June 24th this year. The hottest 100 is Badwater, and that's July 4th. And the hardest in the United States 100 is Hard Rock 100, and that's July 14th this year. And I was lucky enough this year, on December 10th, they had it's a lottery. And the Hard Rock and the Western States both got chosen on the same day, on December 10th. What was funny about that this year, I was running this 100-mile loop run on a mile, a little over a mile, or maybe a little under a mile loop in Arizona called Fat Ox. And I had just finished, and the race director said, "Hey Pam, you just got into hard rock." And then I went to my car, and on my phone it was just blowing up because they said I got into Western States. So, to get into both of those it's really odd. But this year, for some reason, Western States and Hard Rock, I think there's 7 of us that are doing both of those. And then in 2015, I did all 3 of those. But the configuration, they were further apart, and it was Western States, Hard Rock, and then Badwater. And so this year, I didn't even consider it right away because I thought, oh, it's not going to work because Badwater and Hard Rock are too close. And it turns out this year they're about 8 days, 9 days apart. So I entered because the entry for Badwater is after those two. So I entered in January and I got accepted into Badwater. So now I'm going to do all 3. And I'm thinking, what was I thinking?
So I imagine you've always been in shape. You've never gotten out of shape with your running career.
That's very true, right? Except a year ago, on May 9th, May 8th, I was in an Ironman triathlon, which I've done a lot of those also. And so I was doing the World Championship in Ironman in St. George. It was kind of a offset. It was a World Championship because there hadn't been one because of Kona was canceled because of the pandemic, and and then for 2 years I think it didn't happen. So anyway, I got into St. George, and I was doing St. George, and an Ironman race is 2.4 mile swim, 112 bike, and a marathon 26.2 run. So I was at 111 on the bike, and a spectator walked into my bike, and um, consequently I broke my femur and my hip. So I had surgery the next day, which was last May, and so I worked really hard to come back, and so since then I run that Fat Ox 100. I just did the Drift 100, and I this winter I've done a lot of 50Ks, which I don't like, but I've done like 6 of them. And on Saturday I'm doing a 50 miler. Um, and so the answer to your question is no. I've never gotten out of shape, but I broke my leg, and so now I'm back sort of. It's still a little weird, but yeah, I'm coming.
Yeah, so that brings me to my next question. Ultra running can be very taxing on the body. So how do you handle the recovery and taking care of your body with putting on all these miles?
Yeah, well, the recovery is a big one, right? And it's been as I get older, it's become way more important. But even back then, back in my 40s, I would get some massages, but now I get way more. I get massage, I go to acupuncture, I do ART, which is called active release therapy. I go to chiropractors. I, do I swim a lot. I do hot tubs. I do cold plunges. That those are the things that I've done for my recovery, and it really helps. It's really helped my body, and especially massage. I think that's a really important thing. Oh, and the other thing I'm doing right now is I'm doing rolfing. I'm working with a guy in Jackson, and that's pretty. He goes so they go really deep in my muscle, and it's not always. It's definitely not pain free, but you figure what you're doing to your body, you need to break up the scar tissue in your body.
Most definitely. So you mentioned that you didn't like 50Ks. Why is that? Too short?
50Ks are they're too fast. I have like one speed. I think I might have 2 speeds because luckily, and I haven't done a marathon since I broke my leg, but I use marathon as a as a speed work. So I would go out and just do a marathon. And for some reason, I mean, I've never done speed work. I haven't done any of that stuff, but I'd go out and I was able to run faster. So, I would run back in the, right now I'd probably, I mean, right now I have no idea, but 3:45, 3:40 marathon is what I could do lately. And before that, 3:30, 3:20. I broke 3 hours when I was 41. Um, but 50K on a trail, people run fast. I do not like that. So my speed, that's why I like 100-mile runs, because I could do 100 at the same speed I would do a 50K, which means I'm going to be way in the back of the pack of the 50K.
Yes, yes. Okay, so I want to talk about a couple of your wins. In particular, your Badwater 135, which is amazing because you were the first woman. You beat all the guys, and that was in 2002, and then you repeated and did it again in 2003. Can you share a little bit about that experience?
I hadn't even heard of Badwater. My friend who I rode bikes with, he had come back. He had just done, he had been to Badwater, and they have marshals out there. And so he was a marshal for Badwater, which was, back then it was like late in July. So he came, and I lived in Tucson. So he came to me and said, Pam, you got to do this race. It's called Badwater. And I said, what's Badwater? And it's 135 miles in Death Valley. And I've never been to Death Valley. I didn't even know where Death Valley was, but it was also like 130 degrees. And I said, no, that's crazy. No, I don't want to do that. And then my husband there was a Running on the Sun. It was a video about it, or a little movie about it. And I watched it, and it was it was way, way back, Wide World of Sports used to show, that's where I first saw Ironman Hawaii, and also Western States was on there. So way back, and when I saw that in the early, it probably was in the 80s when I saw that. Um, I said to myself, and I don't even know I said it to myself, but I'm like, I want to do both those things. So um, anyway, when back in that video of when they showed the video of Western States, they showed it was so dramatic. They showed people's feet and the blisters, and that's what this video of Badwater showed. And I thought, that's dramatic. I've been to Western. I know it's not like that. It's not. It's doable. Yeah, you get pain, and yeah, you get blisters, but oh well. So once I saw that, I thought, you know what, maybe I could do that. And so um, I I had a I had been doing this race called Elkhorn 100K every year, and that was on my docket to do for that year. And it was 10 days before Badwater. I told my crew chief guy, his name is Chuck. I said, Chuck, I'm gonna go do this race, and it will be perfect. It's 10 days before Badwater. It's supposed to be hot. And he goes, well, work on your nutrition, drink some Ensure. And I said, okay, well, I'll try that. And it was 104. And I got to like mile 50, and 100K is 61 miles. So I got to mile 50, and I drank this Ensure, and I threw it up. And I got so sick. And I finished the race, and I was lucky enough to win the 100K, but I called him right after that, and I said, there's no way, Chuck, I'm not going to be able to do this race. It's 104. It was only 104. Badwater's going to be way hotter. He goes, Pam, you know what, show up, just go to Las Vegas, and we'll take care of everything else. So I showed up, got to Vegas. He was there in a van. We went to Costco. We bought all of our food and water and drinks and blah blah blah, and got to Badwater. And I started at 6 a.m. and he knew from the get go what to do. He had brought a spray bottle from Ace Hardware, and he decided he was going to spray me down, because he came up with that because of he had helped people do the ride across America. And he found out that it was really good to keep them cool, so they kept spraying these riders down. So that's what he did. But I stopped every half mile in Badwater, and everybody else was going a mile, 2 miles without anything. And I'm the only one that every half mile they were spraying me down. And at mile 17, I was ahead of everybody in my group. Like, and so I was by myself. And there were what in Badwater. back then it was 6, 8, and 10 o'clock starts. So he started me at 6 that first year, and by mile 17, I was by myself. So me and my crew just kept going, right? And they kept spraying me down, and I kept going and going and going. And at mile 100, the race director came up to me and said, "You know, you're gonna win this whole thing." And I said, "Well, no, there's the 8 o'clock group and the 10 o'clock group. You know, the 10 o'clock group started 4 hours after I, well, no, 2 hours, 2 hours after, um, and no, 6, 10, yes, 6, 8, and 10. So they started 4 hours past me, and they said, no, they are so far back, including the men, that they can't catch you. If you just keep up what you're doing, they'll never catch you. So when I crossed the finish line, I was ahead of the first guy by almost 5 hours, and the first woman by almost 10 hours. And basically, that was because of that cooling system, right? So the next year, yeah, and it was just crazy. And the next year in 2003, um, it was a little bit different story then, but because these people kind of figured out to spray everybody down. And yeah, and so two guys, Dean Carnazes was one, and another guy who was like an Ultraman guy and an Ultraman is like a double Ironman, but you swim 6.2, you ride 270, and then you run 52. And he was ahead, and so I passed Dean on the first climb, which was probably around 50 miles. And so I thought, oh, well, he's done because he was sick. And I thought, well, Dean's gone. So, and then I'm like, okay, I'm in second. That's cool. So I ended up going at it was ironic because right at 100 miles, I caught the guy who was in first, and I shook his hand, and he was so hot. And we both smiled, and it was a cool picture. I have that picture. It's really cool. But he was so hot. I told my crew, I'm like, you got to help him because there's something wrong because it wasn't even hot right then. It had gone. It was still cool from the night. And we were dropping from a 5,000 foot climb, and we're going back down to Death Valley or to Lone Pine. And anyway, he had to stop, and my crew decided he was okay, but I think he stopped for like 4 or 5 hours. He still finished that year, but then I kept going on, and the race director, I thought for sure I was going to win. I'm like, I'm calling my husband on the phone. I'm like, I'm going to win. It's so cool. And no, and then the race director came up and said, Dean is 20 minutes behind you, and that was with we still had I don't know, like 20 some 25, 26 miles to go. And I just panicked, and I started running as fast as I could. And I kept asking my crew to do the math. Can you catch me? How fast does he have to run to catch me? How slow do I have to not run? And I panicked, but anyway, I only beat him by like 25 minutes or 20 minutes.
It's still inspiring and amazing. Can you share a little bit, like, what did you win? Like, what is the prize of winning Badwater 135 and doing this?
Yeah, I won that first year. I won a rock. They gave me and I think it was just Ben Jones, who he's the coroner and in Lone Pine, and he has a huge history with Badwater, and he gave me a rock, and you get a belt buckle. So everybody gets a belt buckle, and I got a belt buckle, and that's what I got for winning. Yeah, and the second year, it was cool because the other thing I won was they had a deal with David Letterman, so I got to go on David Letterman, which was really fun, and my family got to come, so that was really fun.
Yes, yes. So I think for any runner that does this, it's not about the external rewards. It's about the internal rewards that you get. Can you talk a little bit about the internal rewards you get for winning these ultra marathons?
Well, yeah, not only winning, just doing them. I to date, I run 109 100-mile runs, and I got to tell you, after every single one of them, and without exception, I say, how can anybody run 100 miles? I don't even know how. How it's very challenging. And nowadays, how fast these people can run 100 miles, it's amazing. So it's so internal. Yeah, it's just something that you have to, you endure it. I don't know if you've ever watched any or listened to Rich Roll, but I listened to his podcast, and a while back he was interviewing how he thinks, humans want to do something hard. And that's partially what it makes you feel good to go out there and do something hard. um, and back when, I had, with my husband and I together, we had 5 boys, and I remember thinking, oh, I get to go run for a whole day, 24 hours, and I don't have to do anything with kids for that day, so it was just a day to be outside for that long, whether it be, under 24 hours or 28 hours or whatever it would be. It's just such a blessing. And right now, I mean, truly, I am blessed that I can do this for as long as I've been able to do, and I've been able to come back after my injury and be able to run. And I'm so blessed and so happy. And yeah, and I'm so excited to, on Saturday, I get to go run around Prescott, and it's so pretty. And so I'm excited. Yeah.
Yes, I was born in Prescott, so I know exactly that area. It's gorgeous. Yes.
Oh my gosh. So, yeah, so this 56, it's called the Circle Around. Do you know that trail? There's a trail all the way around it, and that's what we're running on.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. So you definitely are an inspiration. You're in your 60s. You're still doing it. You are defying the stereotypes, defying the odds. And can you talk a little bit about, what keeps you motivated and what advice you would give to others as they go into their, older years?
Well, one thing, so my sister is 3 years older than I am, so she's 65, and I just remember her saying, "Well, you're getting older, and and I'm getting, for her, she's saying I'm getting older." And I just keep telling her, like, you got to keep moving. You got to keep going. And this age is a number, and we just cannot. You can't focus on that. And not to say that it's not different, because it is different. You do feel a little different. But that's okay, and that's what I struggle with, that, getting a little slower, and with this leg thing, I'm just, my speed is just not there right now, but I know it's going to come back, so it'll be okay. I mean, I have one thing about um running hundreds is you have to be patient in ultra running, and whether it's 100 or 50 or 50K or a marathon or a 5K for people who just are getting into it, you have to be patient, and patient with yourself, and kind to yourself, which I'm not always. I'm not always kind to myself, because I'm hard on myself. Like, I expect a lot out of myself, and yeah, right, right, and it's a difficult thing, and it's difficult because it's always, when you cross the finish line, the first thing somebody says to you is, "What's next?" And you're like, "Can't I just enjoy this for a second?" And every athlete I know, that's what it is, and people just want to know, well, what are you doing next? And it's like, oh my goodness, and now, these three, I know what I'm doing next. So, um, you know,
That's awesome. Another race I wanted to talk to you about is your 300-mile race, where you didn't sleep, you didn't stop for 300 miles. Can you share a little bit about that race?
Yes, and well, it wasn't didn't stop. It was didn't sleep, and the whole thing was didn't sleep, right? And when I stopped, I didn't stop long. It was how that all happened was when I won Badwater both times. I'd get a little tiny article written up in Runner's World, because that was like the only magazine back then, right? And then the third year I did Badwater, Dean Karnazes won, and he was on the cover. And he got on the cover, and I'm like, how come, what was the difference here? Why couldn't a woman get on the cover? But anyway, he was on the cover, and what happened is he had an article written about him, and my husband read the article, and I don't read these magazines. I don't even look at the magazine. So my husband saw this magazine. So anyway, in the article, he talked about how he was trying to run 300 miles without sleep. And Jim goes, just off the cuff, he goes, "How come? Do you think you could run 300 miles without sleep?" And I just went out running that day, and I thought about it, and I thought, I think I could run 300 miles without sleep. I just visualized it, while I was running. And then I called my friend, the Chuck, who was my crew chief for Badwater, and said, "Chuck, do you think you could help me, do this 300-mile run without sleep?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I just there's a there's a road, there's a frontage road out by Picacho Peak in Tucson that they would do a time trial on bikes, and it was 12 and a half miles. So you just go down 12 and a half miles and you go back." And so I had to do that for whatever, I don't know, 16, I can't even remember how many times, but it was to make 300 miles. So 25, what is that? 12, 12 times, I guess. So anyway, I'm like, yeah, I think I could do it. So he put it together, and I got some people to come out and run with me, and that's what we did. We went out, and it was really fun because back then, I don't even know how, but the truck drivers found out about it, and I'm on the frontage road, which is right next to I-10, going to Tucson. So they would stop. They'd stop their truck and come and beep their horn and see me, because so it was just that was really cool. And the last 25 miles was the hardest, because I kind of, all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, and I was like not able to eat or drink very much. So a friend came out, and she was just feeding me, and it helped a lot, because then I just finished, and then I felt fine. And I went, and well, my doctor friend who said, you really need to get liquid, you should get an IV, because I was going to hop on a plane. I was going to be on the Tony Danza show after that. So I was going to hop on a plane like the day after. So I got an IV, and then of course I'm in the hospital. They're giving me this IV, and then I went to get up, and I laid there for I don't know how many hours, I don't know how long, how many IVs they gave me, but I had a hard time walking, getting up, because I had just run for 3 days almost, and then I got up, and I couldn't. It was hard to walk, and then I started walking again, and I went home and I sat in my jacuzzi, and then I was fine. But yeah, it was a cool experience.
Did you ever hallucinate or get discombobulated when you were running in the dark and these long miles?
There on that 300, I did not. But I'll tell you, I now do 100-mile runs where I pull a sled, and there's a lot of hallucinating going on. And what I noticed, that you hallucinate more when it's winter, because the snow looks like more things. So I would see like wolves, and I would see people on not motorcycles, on snowmobiles, and I saw these people like with shorts on, but not during that 300. I didn't do it. And I've done the Cocodona 250. That took me 108 hours, and I slept only 3 hours. So there was some going on there too. Like, you just start seeing things. But you know what happened to me? So I just did the drift in March, and it took me 53 hours. I did not sleep at all. And right after it, and this has happened a couple other times, and it's not like I wasn't even listening to music or anything, but after it, my ears, and I didn't have the radio on, but it felt like I was listening to a radio, like I was listening to music, and there was nothing there. So that was what happened after, because I was driving home after the drift, which is only an hour away from my house here in Jackson. Um, yeah, and I kept hearing, I'm like, what is that? And it lasted a couple hours, and it went away.
Yes, yes. So these ultra runs are definitely about pushing the limits and testing people as far as what they can do. What do you see for the future of the sport? The miles getting longer, that type of thing.
Well, I tried to enter Barkley, which, have you heard of that? The Barkley Marathons. It's called the Barkley Marathons. It is quote unquote a 100-mile run, and it's these loops in Tennessee, and you have to do navigation, and I'm not quite into that. It would be kind of fun to try it, but you have to get chosen, and only 40 people get chosen, so I think that's out of my realm. So that's probably one that I won't get chosen. But no, I would like to try other all different things. My main goal when I was 40, which is 22 years ago, I can't believe, I wanted to run across America. So I still kind of want to do that. If I can put that together, but it's just such a big undertaking. So I'd like to do that if I could. But no, I would like to try whatever. But you just there's only so many days in a year.
Okay, because you've run over 400 miles. Is that the furthest, or what is the furthest distance you've ever run?
No, it's probably only 300, right? So yeah, yeah, I think so. Um, when I've run, the Cocodona was 250, but it took me 108 hours. So that took way longer than the 300. But you're on trails, and the 100 was on pavement. Yeah, so that's about as far. So, but the days, for that 108 hours, that was started on a Monday morning and I finished on a Friday afternoon. Yeah.
So, one of your platforms is talking about and raising awareness around eating disorders, and that is something that I know is important to you. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that topic and how it relates to your running?
Yeah, wow. So I just listened to Kara Goucher's book that just came out, and she talks about what do they call it now? They call it disordered eating, and I guess it's called disordered eating because an eating disorder is like a, a clinical term, right? Like you're anorexic, you have to be diagnosed anorexic, which I was. I was diagnosed anorexic. And how that whole thing happened, and it was not because of running for me, but what's happening, I guess, in track running, in running in general, is there's a lot of, I guess that's what is happening. There's a lot of disordered eating because in running, they say it's better for you to be light. And that never occurred to me. I mean, I had my eating disorder, my anorexia started when I was 15 years old. And I wanted to be like Olga Korbut, who was an Olympian. She was a gymnast, and she was 4'10" and 80 some pounds, and I was 5'3" and I weighed 100 pounds, and I thought, well, I want to be 4'10" and 80 pounds. So I thought, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to stop eating. And that was way, way back when I was in high school, and that was in the 70s. And so I just thought it was a good idea just to stop eating. And so I lost 10 pounds, and you know, in gymnastics. And I just recently it's been thinking about this because of this Kara Goucher's book. She talked about they have to wear those bun shorts, but in gymnastics, you're wearing leotards, and you see every ounce of everything of your body. And I don't, I think that might be part of it. I didn't want to, and Kara talks about women, girls, young adolescents becoming heavier, as an adolescent because of, you start your period and you have all that. And I didn't, I, because of my anorexia probably and not eating, I did not start my period till I was late 17, like almost 18. So and I didn't want to get, and then the food thing and that whole thing, not eating, started. But what happened is I was hospitalized when I was 28. And so that was right when I started into my long distance running, and I found out that, oh, by the way, you cannot run that far if you don't eat. So that's when I started I just, you had to eat. And that's when, and when I was in the hospital, they gave me Ensure, which I absolutely hated. But when I went and did Badwater, that's what I drank because I could get the most calories in that I could, which was good. And that helped me. And so now unfortunately for me, the anorexia, you always have a bit of that, which is hard, you know. So, but I also know that I cannot run or do an Ironman without eating. So it's it's not a fun thing to have, and it's so unhealthy. And you know, to do these miles, you've got to have calories, and so I would yeah, it's just a sad thing, and once you have it, it's hard to, I don't know that you can just walk away and say I don't have that anymore.
Yes, yes. I'm very glad that you are spotlighting it and bringing it up because it can be a lifelong issue that somebody has to contend with. I mean, you're in your 60s and you're very open and talking about it, and I know it's helping somebody that's, listening to this video that might be, struggling with it themselves and realize, you know, how do I want to, proceed in life and live a healthy lifestyle, but yet have to work through some of these types of issues.
Exactly. And people have called me and I've talked to them about it, and just I hear you, you know, like you don't I've screwed myself up so bad because of it that I have to eat very bland food, and I have to be careful because, you know, you just feel so bloated. And so it's affected me totally, and it's not in a good way, you know. So I would just, if some people that I've heard when they've had anorexia or whatever, they've gotten over it quickly. And I mean, I had it for, I mean, I was active in it for 15 years. And then after that, I'm not active in it, but it's affected me in many different ways, and it continues to do so. So yeah, and I'm very open about it. I think, and I remember in the hospital them saying, "Oh, at least you admit it," you know, because, you know, like in alcoholism or something, they'll say, you if you admit it, that's the first thing. But you know, you still have to act on. You can admit it, but you still have to do the activity of eating, and of eating healthy, and that's it's a tough thing for somebody that have issues with it.
Yes, yes, and I think it's an important subject, especially in the area of athletics and sports. And it's not just anorexia. There is disordered eating in amongst a lot of athletes that have to kind of reassess what they're doing, maybe to their body. But yeah, it is definitely a topic and one that needs to be more discussed, I think, amongst sports and the sport industry.
Well, oh, absolutely. And that was one thing that Kara even mentioned in her book, that she said that in college they had nutritionists, but nobody went and talked to them. It's like, so, you know, and we all kind of do what we're going to do, but you know, when it start, like for me, the most important thing is I want to get out there and run, and and for me to have the energy to do these miles, you've got to eat. You just have to eat. So you've got to make yourself do it. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to do what I really love to do. So that's, I can make myself do it, but it's not always easy. You know, it's a but if you don't do it, you're not going to get to the finish line.
Right, right. So running has definitely helped you with some of the, you know, symptoms or struggling with the eating disorder. The running has forced you to like look at it and think, okay, this trumps this eating disorder.
Well, exactly. And when you really think about what you're doing, it's absolutely insane. I mean, if you but I have to be careful about little things like well, I just got a running coach, which I've never had, and he wanted me to go on it's called Training Peaks, and I don't even know what it is. I know there's a word, and I know that you have to write down different things, and I cannot do that because it like triggers things, and I cannot look at calories, or I can't do any of that because when I was in the hospital they used to talk about calories, and it's like that's the last thing I want to listen to. I don't want to know how many calories are in something. I'm just going to eat, and that's just something for me. And I don't know if other people do that, because you know, when you start doing that, it just puts me in a bad place. So I know that about myself.
Yes, yes. Well, that's interesting that you have a running coach with all of your experience and all of your wisdom. Uh, Can you talk a little bit about the need for a running coach?
Well, I'll tell you what. I told him in the beginning that I don't want to. I'm not gonna. He doesn't have to tell me anything about running, like about how far to run or what to do, because I kind of have that down. I really wanted him just to listen to me.
Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about mental toughness and grit, because I truly believe that people can outwork talent, and especially in running long distance, I think that comes to the forefront.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. I think almost, in my estimation, an athlete, a person who um, works harder than has it come to them easier, it that that might be a better. I don't know. It seems like the people that it comes easy to, it's it's they might not be as good at ultra running. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's like if things come really easy, because you have to work really hard to get to these things, and you have to endure, and maybe I'm sure there's exceptions to those rules, but for sure for me, I was not. I'm like an average athlete, and I just worked extremely hard and was very, very dedicated to it.
So I have to imagine when you're doing those really long runs that there can be some dark moments, like mind tricks that go on in your head to help you go, I have to go another 30 miles. How do you work through those moments?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of and my mentor is Benny. He would say the number one word is patience. You just have to have patience because I was listening to another podcast, and a guy who just won a race, he was going to drop out. He was like halfway through the race and he was going to drop out. And then just somebody said, just keep going. And all of a sudden, he did better. And you just have to have patience with yourself, and be kind to yourself during these things, because you get really hard on yourself, or some people do, that are that kind of person, that if you're hard on yourself, you're definitely going to go through those things in the middle of these races. Um and people say, oh, you got to try to stay grateful. And I mean, I'm so grateful, but you forget that out there. You're in this pain, and you got to you got to keep remembering it. And when you do, it's so much better. And when you're happy, it's so much better. So trying to keep yourself in a good mood, or looking around, or just you just notice the beauty of it. It's unbelievable. And no matter where you are, there's a lot of beauty. Even so it's like you've got to think about those types of things, as opposed to, oh, this hurts or that hurts, or because it all does sometimes. And you just try to look around and think about that, rather than how your big toe is hurting.
Yes, yes. And I love that you said remain grateful in the suffering, in the pain, in the hardness of it all. Like there's something to be grateful for those types of things because you know that you're growing yourself, you're stretching yourself, you're challenging yourself. And those are I would be super grateful for those experiences.
Well, right, and how lucky are we to be um in this beautiful place. Like when I did the drift, which was that 100-mile run where we're pulling the sled, and we were in a blizzard. We actually had two blizzards in the first day, and then the second day it got really, or the third day, I don't even remember. I mean, it was 2.5 days of running. um, but the third day, the sun was beating. It was beautiful outside, and it was like, how lucky are we, to be out here, and the sun's out, and it's beautiful, and the mountains have snow on them, and so. But it's very. You have to be on top of that to remember that for sure.
Yes, yes. Do you ever go into a time warp when you're running or do you feel every minute, every second of that race?
Oh no, you don't. I don't. No, you definitely will go and not remember, and don't even know what happened, 5 minutes ago. And people used to talk about that, like when they're running on the road, like, which is kind of scary. You're running on the road and you don't even remember, stopping at that stop sign and going again. So that's what happens, right? You're in that flow. And again, how many years have I run? Since I was 15. I'm 62, so whatever that is. And not very many times you get into when you get into that flow. Oh my gosh, I ran the marathon in the St. George Marathon, and it was I had just had surgery on my mouth like 4 days before, and I got to that race thinking I'm going to run a 4-hour marathon and I'm going to jog it. And I got out there, and that's what I thought. I was running a 4-hour marathon, and I got to like 1 mile to go, and somebody said, "You're going to break 3." And I said, "What? No, I'm not. I'm running 4 hours." And I looked down. This first time I looked at my watch, it was like, oh my gosh. So that last mile, I felt like I was actually running. But for those first 25, I didn't even feel like I was running. But that does not happen often at all.
Is it kind of like a meditative state that you get in, like an out of body experience a little bit?
A- Absolutely. Because when I finished, I just heard somebody else just say they just did some 50K and they won it. And they walked away and they weren't even sore. And that's exactly what happened to me. I finished that race. I didn't even feel like I ran. It was the most bizarre thing ever, but it just doesn't happen often. Like the first Badwater, there was a lot of it was amazing. It was absolutely fun and beautiful and great, and it just doesn't happen a lot like that.
Yes, yes. So you've had a lot of experience doing these ultra runs and being around other ultra runners, and it's a different type of unique breed that attracts this type of sport and training that's required for it. What would you say is kind of the characteristics and makeup of people who are driven by and do these types of sport or ultra marathons?
They what they talk about is the family, the family feeling, like the people. Um, there's everybody is so kind. You know, I what I really noticed the difference is when you do like an Ironman triathlon compared to an ultra run. There's it's night and day. Um, and my personal feeling on that is when you get on a bike, you're vulnerable. I mean, look, that's how I broke my stupid leg. But when you're on a bike, you can fall off the bike, right? And when you're running, you're on your own 2 feet. I don't know. It's a very interesting thing, but running these long distances, it's people are so, like I said, they're kind, they're helpful. If I noticed when I was running Leadville one year. Actually, this happened 2 different times. The first year was I was running and I was not feeling well. And I had done Leadville like 7 times. And this woman comes by and she had run it the year before and had to drop out, but figured out she got some charcoal pills or something that is supposed to help with your stomach. And she was feeling amazing. And she was way ahead of me. And I was feeling terrible. And she goes, "Here, take this pill, take this charcoal pill and try it. It's really good. It helps settle your stomach." And it was her last one, and she still had 20 miles to go. And I said, "No, no, no, keep it." No, she goes, "No, no, take it, take it." And so that's a cool thing. People will give of themselves. And then what happened is, like, the next year I was in it, I helped somebody else out. So it's kind of like, paying it forward type thing, I think. And you're out there, and you're out in nature, and it's just so pretty. So maybe that's part of it. You're just, yeah, I don't know, but it's a great community. It really is.
The community and the culture, and it is a subculture that not everybody knows about or is even aware of these types of things, that people run 100 miles or 300 miles. It just sounds like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not even impossible. But I think it's interesting that you guys have this, like you said, community where you support each other. Everybody knows what everybody's going through, what the feelings are like, and that it is a passion. It's not just something that you're doing for the medal, the belt buckle, whatever. It's an internal passion, and I think that it's cool that this sport is something you can do for decades and a lifelong passion.
Yes, yes. And and I'll tell you, I do believe this, but it has to. I really do believe that many people could run 100 miles, but they have to want to. They have to want to, and that's the number one thing is you have to really want it. Like what they call it is you have to have a why. You have a If you have a why, then you can do it. Because when you have that why, when you get to those points of like I want to stop, you'll say, no, this is why I'm doing this. You can do this. You can do this. And you can, your toe hurts. Well, you can run through that. It's going to get better. And it does. It gets better, and things come and go. It's funny, aches and pains. And that happens in real life, though, on a given day, right? You have a given day that you're on a bad day. And then by the end of it, you didn't remember that that was a bad day. And it's the same thing in a 100-mile run. Like you have this bad patch, you feel bad, just keep moving. Just it's just like in life. Just got to keep moving, put one foot in front of the other, keep moving throughout your day, and it's going to get better. And it does. It's cool.
Yes, yes. I think running is a great metaphor for life. There's lots of lessons and things that you have to overcome with it. And so I have to ask you, what is your why, or what has been your why for running?
It changes, like, I'm excited for these 300s because that's my why. The canyons, I'm coming up to the canyons. If I win my age group, I get to go and do the UTMB. So that would be my why. So it's good to have a why. It really is, because it gives you that extra oomph. Maybe it's your what's it your yeah, your kryptonite. Like because there, I guarantee. I mean, I would have to say 9 times out of 10 in these races you want to stop. And you should hear these funny things. Like my friend and my husband, we would do Ironmans, and both of them would say they're in the middle of the bike and they're just in so much pain, they're uncomfortable, and they're like, maybe if I got hit by lightning, or just a little, or maybe if I just broke my ankle, they think about this, maybe then I could stop. And I've heard runners say that too. What if I just did this, rolled something, just so I wouldn't have to continue? And you really don't want that. Of course, you don't want that, right? But it's so funny, they come into your brain. So it's the oddest things that come into your brain because Courtney Dauwalter talks about her pain cave and how she chisels away at it. And so we all come up with these little things that help us go through, and visualizing. And that's the other thing I think. I was born. I just. I don't even know. Nobody told me about it. I just visualized. Like when I was a gymnast, I just would go over and over my routine, and that's what I do. Like, and don't tell anybody, but when I'm in yoga, I'm running my 100-mile runs. When I do yoga, yeah, I run the whole thing while I'm doing yoga.
So what do you mean? Like you're seeing yourself run the first mile, the aid station, visualizing what that feels like, telling yourself your strategies moving forward, and then crossing the finish line.
Exactly. And I was just listening to a podcast with, I think it was Des Linden, was saying how when she won the Boston Marathon, she had visualized the whole thing, and she visualized her doing it. And then what happened is she got to, or this might have been Kara Goucher, one of them, but she got to the Sitco side of the Boston Marathon, and in her visualization there was nobody there, she was by herself. And when the reality was there were other people there, so it's funny, our visualization. And yeah, I visualized like crossing the finish line. What does that feel like? What does that look like? How do you feel? Yeah, I go through all of that, all of it. And I going into an aid station, what am I going to do at that aid station? When am I going to leave that aid station? Yeah, so I've done it a lot. Yeah.
Do you visualize your setbacks? What if I sprain my ankle? What am I going to do? Like, do you think those things through beforehand?
Interesting. No, I I've only, yes, yes. But then again, I think what's happened, because I've done so many of them, that I've learned. And how do you learn, right? You learn from experience. And though a lot of things have happened during those, right? And so I remember things that have happened, and I said, okay, well that happened, so don't do that again. Coming into aid stations. Oh yeah, I mean, what happened? I was doing the 200-mile run Moab 240, and I came into an aid station. I gave both my bottles to them, and I said, water in one, tailwind in the other, and um, I have left there with two tailwinds. So now I'm watching them do that. I will not just hand them and do something else. You've got to be, you've got to. That's the other part of it is, they give, there's markings of courses, but you're in the at the end of the day, you are responsible. You are responsible for yourself out there, and you need to, look at the markings, and you need to take care of yourself in the aid station. But everybody wants to help you, but note to self: if that doesn't happen, it's on you, right?
You run the perfect race in your mind.
You got to. That's the other part of it is, you they give, there's markings of courses, but you're in the at the end of the day, you are responsible. You are responsible for yourself out there, and you need to, look at the markings, and you need to take care of yourself in the aid station. But everybody wants to help you, but note to self: if that doesn't happen, it's on you, right?
So I have to ask you, what is your favorite tennis shoe?
Oh my goodness, they've all changed. It changes because I've had so many of them. For a while, I was running in Newtons. I loved them, and then I went from Newtons to Ultras, and you couldn't go from much different. And I wore Ultras, and now I'm wearing On. I love On, and so, and I believe all the shoes are good in some way. You have to, and I also think that you should change them out, because when you're running that many miles, like if I'm running between 70 and 100 miles a week, it's a good idea to change out the different kinds of shoes, and just work with them. And but right now I love Ons. They're really great. The cushion, I wear them on the trails. So that's it. And again, I think it just changes. I mean, I've been doing it for so long.
Hmm. So you mentioned you run 70 to 100 miles a week. Is that currently what you're doing?
And it go on and off. Probably yeah, maybe 60 to 100 right now ish. Yeah.
And how do you schedule that? Are you a morning runner? Like, how do you maintain that?
Yeah, well, because of the 100 comes when I've done so many of these 50Ks. I've done a 50K practically every week, so that's 30 miles, right? So there's the long one. I run a couple times a day. So in the morning, 7 to 8, 6 to 8 to 9 miles in the morning, and then again in the afternoon, 4 to 6, something like that, in during the week. And I do 1 to 2 yoga classes a day, swimming, some biking when I can. So that's what it. So it's not always running. Right now, it's probably more time. Like I said, 3 to 5 to 6 hours a day. I'm supposed to. I look at yoga as kind of weight training, but it's really not. So yeah, I need to do more weight training. I'm working on that. It doesn't fit into my schedule right now.
Hmm. Do you do any weight training, or do you find that that helps or hurts?
Yeah, it's fun. I'm blessed that I'm able to do that right now. I don't have a job, so that this is my job, and it kind of always has been my job, but now it's really my job. But you don't get paid.
If somebody is interested in maybe going down this road, what advice would you give them if they're interested to, they've done the marathons and now they're thinking, I want to go the next level, the next step, the ultras. What type of tips, training strategies would you give them?
Well, I was just telling my friend this, that if you've done a marathon, you can run a 50 mile. You run a little, like a mile more than a half of it, and I think the theory is if you run half, you can double that, right? So so I would say go try a 50. Go find a 50 that But running the 50, you got to know that you're not going to run marathon pace. Just go slow, and you're going to go out and run and enjoy it and eat at the aid stations. And there's so much information out there right now, um, and there's so much coaching, and I think that could maybe help. Again, the thing about the coaching thing is, I don't know that you've got to really understand that people have lives, right? They have jobs, or they have kids, or so it's it's got to fit into your schedule, whatever that is. And as a mom or a dad, I would used to run at their practices. Like when they were practicing, I would run and around where they're practicing, just so to save the time too. The time where you have to drive them to practice, you might as well run right there. Um, doing things like that. So, but running the races, you should just go try them. If you run a marathon is tough. A marathon is very tough because you're pushing yourself. So just go and try a 50K, a 50 miler, and just you you definitely have to back it off. And if you don't back it off, you'll find out that, oh, I'm going to have to back it out, because when you get to your whatever mile is, you're not going to be able to keep it up, and you just slow down. That's all. Or yeah, yeah.
So I mentioned in the introduction all of your world records, some of the your races that you've won. According to you, what is your most proud race and why?
Well, when I won Badwater the first time, it was life changing. And it was the first time, like when I crossed the finish line, I had this peace that came over me. It was really cool. It was like, wow, I did this. I was it just was a great feeling. So Badwater is really cool. I've gone on to doing so many other amazing, amazing events. Like the Arrowhead 135, pulling a sled, drift, pulling a sled. Those are different. Those are pushing myself to different limits, and scary things out there, because you're out there all by yourself. And UTMB, what's an amazing, oh my gosh, it's just so beautiful and challenging. And and all of them, Western, what I'm about to do, Western, Badwater, and Hard Rock, all three of those, they're so unique and they're so amazing. And the last time I ran Badwater, I was up on top of Handy's, which is the 14,000-foot climb, and I just looked around and I just started crying. It's so pretty. I mean, the mountains look like somebody painted them. It's bizarre. It was bizarre, and it's just so beautiful. And again, so blessed to be out there, and so blessed to get chosen to do these, because some of them, like I said, you got to get chosen out of a lottery. So I know I'm just and grateful that I have the body and the willpower to do it.
That's awesome, awesome. Well, we're getting here toward the end. Are there any final thoughts that you would like to share with the audience with regards to ultra running, eating disorders, anything that we've talked about today?
I guess both of these, eating disorders, running, all these things in our lives, um, I, they do help you learn and grow to become a better person. And ultra running definitely helps you become a better person because of I think it's the culture of it, right? Everybody, and not everybody's really kind and nice out there, but majority are. And it makes you, when they're kind to you, you're kind to them, and help. It's just such a great place to be. And for anybody that's suffering with anorexia, and they do want to do an ultra, just you have to remember that you cannot do it without eating. And um, and I know it can be very difficult to eat, but it's really just kind of like putting one foot in front of the other, moving. You have to take care of yourself. You've got to fuel your body. It doesn't do it itself. And and also get help for that, because the other thing that I have suffered with is depression. And I would tell people to you got to get help with depression because it's a really tough thing. And when you get depressed, then you can't run, and it's a snowball, right? And I was really lucky enough with my depression is I could run through it always. It was never something that I couldn't do, but I know some people can't. And to reach out and get help for that, because and there's so much help out there. And maybe that's another reason to get a coach. Maybe that coach could help you with the eating or with the depression, or yeah.
Yes, that's a really good point. The running can definitely help with depression symptoms, but it doesn't cure it. And running doesn't cure eating disorders either, but it can definitely help you on your journey and help you on your treatment plan. That's a positive coping mechanism. So I think that's a really important message.
Yeah, and really there's so much help out there. And with the
And there's no shame. The stigma is done. We're done stigmatizing these things, and I think people need to, not be afraid to get help. There's strength in getting help.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There is. And it just, and one other thing is, sadly, my doctor, not the person that did my surgery for my broken leg, but the doctor after that, he was an amazing doctor. He started, the hospital over in Idaho, in Driggs, Idaho, and, he committed suicide this past summer. And um, that just doesn't have to happen. When you have those thoughts, they're so real, and I'm not discounting that. They are real thoughts. But if you can get help through that night, you wake up the next day. And if you don't get that help, you may not wake up the next day. And when you wake up the next day, you're a different person. And so it's just, I really want people to know that they don't have to do that. And, this doctor, he touched so many people's lives. And when you're in that depression, you don't know how many people you really help. I mean, and you forget that because you just are so deep, dark in this awfulness that you forget how many people really you help, and they look up to you, and that's the last thing that should ever happen. So, yeah, please get help if you need it.
Yes, yes, that's an important topic. I've spotlighted it on my channel before, because it's prevalent. Unfortunately, we hear about it pretty way too often in the workplace, acquaintances, family, friends. So I think that that's awesome that you're also spotlighting that.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been really nice.
Yes. Well, it has been my honor to interview you because I do see you as a legend in the running world. And I was super excited when you accepted my invitation. It was truly my honor.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, yes. And if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to comment and subscribe and hit the bell to be alerted to when the next video drops. Thanks for watching.